All right, let's dive into something that I think we can all relate to: deep work versus flow. We're going to explore two super powerful states of mind that are honestly the key to getting meaningful work done. So, what's the real difference between them? And more importantly, how can you actually use them? I mean, think about it. Have you ever just completely lost an hour, or maybe two, to digital distractions? You sit down at your desk, you've got the best intentions, right? But then an hour goes by and you've done, well, pretty much everything except the one thing you were supposed to do. Yep, we've all been there. But now let's think about the flip side. Think about those rare, almost magical moments where you are completely in the zone. You know, those golden hours where time just vanishes. Your mind is sharp, the work feels almost effortless. That is the feeling we're all chasing, isn't it? Which brings us to section 1, the battle for your focus. And let's be real, it feels like a battle. The modern world has pretty much declared war on our attention. And in this fight, your ability to focus, it's probably the most valuable resource you have. I mean, we all want to work smarter, right? We want to create something meaningful, but our focus is just constantly under siege. The good news, though, is that there are proven ways to fight back. And in this explainer, we're going to break down two incredibly powerful modes of concentration: deep work and the flow state, to help you build a much more purposeful rhythm in your day. All right, section 2, let's meet our two contenders, deep work and flow. Now, on the surface, they might seem pretty similar, but they operate in fundamentally different ways. And honestly, understanding them, that's the key to unlocking your potential. So first up is deep work. This is a term that was coined by the author Cal Newport. And a great way to think about it is like strength training, but for your brain. It's not always easy. In fact, it's often kind of hard, but it's exactly what builds that muscle of attention. Okay, so what does deep work actually look like in practice? Well, first off, it's intentional. You have to decide you're going to do it. Second, it absolutely requires a distraction-free environment. Third, the task itself has to be mentally stretching, challenging. And finally, and this is crucial, the outcome has to produce a lasting impact. It moves a project forward in a really meaningful way. Okay, now for our second concept, the flow state. This was famously researched by the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. And yeah, that's a mouthful. This is what we all call being in the zone. It's way less about raw discipline and much more about total absorption. It's something you don't really push yourself into, it's more like you just slide into it. And this visual right here illustrates perfectly how flow happens. Just look at this chart. Flow pops up in that top right corner, right? It's that sweet spot where a really high challenge meets your high skill level. Think about it. If the challenge is too low for your skill, you get bored. If it's way too high, you just get anxious. Flow, well, that's the perfect balance. So how do you know when you're in a flow state? Oh, you'll know it when you feel it. Hours can seriously feel like minutes. You're so engaged that the entire outside world just kind of melts away. And the work itself, not just the final product, but the process feels deeply, deeply satisfying. All right, section 3, discipline versus the zone. So now that we know what these two things are, let's kind of put them head to head. How do you know when to use that disciplined deep work versus trying to find that almost effortless flow? Okay, so the contrast here is absolutely key. Let's look at deep work. It's all about intentional structure. It feels effortful, right? It's output focused, and you are in control of the conditions. Flow, on the other hand, it's spontaneous, it feels effortless, it's more focused on the experience, and you can't really control it. You can only encourage the right conditions for it to show up. You know, this quote just sums it up perfectly. Deep work is a discipline you practice. Flow state is an experience you enter. I mean, that's it right there. One is a conscious practice you build up, like any other habit. The other is a mental state you almost magically arrive in, kind of like a reward for setting things up just right. So, how can you actually practice deep work? Well, you got to be intentional. First, schedule those focus blocks. Protect 90 to 120-minute windows in your calendar. Step 2, remove the distractions. I mean, all of them. Silence your phone, maybe even put it in another room. Step 3, define success. Know what done looks like before you even start. And step 4, and this is a big one, embrace boredom. Don't fill every spare moment with scrolling. It literally recharges your focus muscle. Now, inviting a flow state, that's a different game. You're not forcing it, you're cultivating the conditions. So first, you gotta match the challenge to your skill. Pick tasks that stretch you, but just slightly.
Second, create little rituals. These are like mental on switches for your brain, maybe some specific music or a certain workspace. Third, try to remove time pressure. Set aside open-ended blocks of time if you can. And finally, focus on those intrinsic rewards. Choose tasks you genuinely want to do. Curiosity is really the fuel for flow.
Okay, but here's a really crucial point, and it's one that often gets overlooked. There's actually a dark side to flow. Chasing that in-the-zone feeling, well, it can have its downsides. And this quote is a pretty powerful warning. Many driven people become flow junkies, chasing the high just like any other drug. That incredible high you get from a peak flow state, it can become addictive. And that can lead some people to chase it at all costs, which, as you can probably guess, can lead straight to burnout. And there's actually a name for the aftermath of this. It's called a flow hangover. So, why does this happen? Well, that peak state of flow, it uses up a huge amount of really expensive neurochemicals in your brain. So while you feel absolutely amazing during it, you can feel completely depleted afterward. So the solution? It's all about planning for recovery. The more intense the flow state you experience, the more downtime your brain and your body are going to need to recharge. So this means you have to intentionally space out your most demanding activities. Give yourself time to recover and avoid that burnout cycle. Okay, section 5, finding your rhythm. So how do we actually put all of this together? Look, deep work and flow, they are not enemies. In fact, they're partners. And they work together to create sustainable, meaningful work. Here's a great way to think about it. Deep work builds the habit of focus. It's the discipline that gets you to show up, even on the days you're just not feeling inspired. It builds that solid foundation. Flow, on the other hand, makes the work enjoyable. It's like the reward that sometimes appears, making all that hard work feel joyful and motivating you to come back and do it again. So really, the goal here isn't constant intensity. It's not about being on all the time. It's about finding a balance, a rhythm that turns focus from this constant struggle into something that feels natural and sustainable. So I'm going to leave you with a question to think about. What's just one distraction, just one, that you can eliminate this week to make a little more space for both deep work and flow? Because that single change, that could be the first step toward building your very own rhythm.